rise of partisan media fits within your research.
Yeah, so I think one of the things my research is really driving home is that it's not, voters as a whole are not in general to blame for the culture we're seeing. It's more about the sort of institutional incentives that result from the fact that districts have become somewhat less politically diverse, and from things like the rise of partisan media. Now, many of these things are potentially changeable, right? We can, if districts become less gerrymandered, that could potentially, in some cases, mean the districts become somewhat more competitive. If we thought about changing the rules for some of the primaries, that could make a little bit of a difference in terms of the incentives there. And I think also partisan media is a little bit more of a difficult one to figure out sort of how to fix, but I think that's another one of those sort of outside influences that can be challenging. And and it's true that this has also been, it's worth noting, asymmetric. We haven't seen partisan media looking exactly the same on both sides of the political spectrum. And you do have sort of a fair amount of sort of well-funded conservative media outlets that have started to make a name for themselves by really just tearing down sort of almost anything you see in the mainstream media, right? And really casting doubt on a whole lot of things as to what's factually true. And I think we actually saw this on climate change before we saw it on some other issues. Now, this is not to say that that's true of all conservative media. There are some really excellent conservative media sources that are still doing extremely solid reporting. And those sources are often making other arguments sort of against sort of certain climate change policies. But I think those are also the folks who are amenable to thinking about, okay, what could a solution look like that's respectful, say, of free market principles? Or what could a solution look like that doesn't mean the government has to be super, super involved in brand new regulations? So I think, you always want to think about who are the sort of potentially persuadable people and who are the potentially sympathetic media outlets, and realize that there is a lot of diversity still in sort of the media on both sides, and in terms of what the outlets are prioritizing. I do think that to the extent that partisan media is really, that certain outlets are just very focused on look how terrible the other side is, they can never do anything right, that seems not always helpful, because I do think it really creates this idea that everybody on the other side, they're the enemies, they're all corrupt, and they're trying to really destroy the things that matter. And I think when you see elected officials cooperating with each other in a bipartisan way, that sends the opposite message. Like, you know what? There are sometimes, like, there are reasonable folks on the other side, and sometimes we can find things to agree on. That doesn't mean we agree on everything. It doesn't mean we give up our principles, but it does mean that they're still people and we can sometimes cooperate with them about things. So I think bipartisanship gives a different message than the one people might be seeing in partisan media, and that's part of what makes it powerful.